Hello, writers. Have you ever bought a writing craft book someone says you just have to read?
Is it still sitting on your shelf? Have you even cracked the spine?
That's totally me.
Don't ask Renee how many craft books she owns.
Why do we keep buying these books we never read?
We all want to improve as writers, but that's hard to do alone.
That's why we started the Words to Write By podcast, to tackle these books together, chapter by chapter, and learn from their advice.
Or not. Sometimes they're wrong.
Hi, I'm Renee Nelson, former college writing instructor turned full-time writer and podcaster. After many years, I finally have a complete draft of my memoir.
And I'm Kim Smuga-Otto, author of the humorous fantasy series Boy Bands and Dragons. The first book, our comeback tour Slaying Monsters, will be released this year by Riverfolk Publishing.
And now, on with the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, hey.
Today, we are covering 3 more chapters in Christopher Vogler's The Writer's Journey. And you know how we start a book and we're excited, and there's like this thing and that thing, it's different than the other thing before, and then we get the idea, and that's really cool. And then at a certain point, we go, okay, so this is the book we're reading for the next 3 months.
The midpoint craft book blues.
And this one delivers at the 25% point.
Yeah. I mean, we were already kind of shitting on this book from the beginning. I mean, but now it's getting kind of bad. Yeah.
We're getting some real good material.
Hang in there. I've got some things to say this week.
But before that, the other thing that we did with this book, and I'm so glad we decided to do this, was to pick other fiction books to identify if what they're talking about in this book actually makes sense. We were covering The Last Unicorn in the past few podcasts, and now we are on to one of my favorites, Howl's Moving Castle by Diane Wynne Jones. This is this book that the movie was based off of, the Ghibli movie, and it's a bit different. And my own personal experience was that back when the movie came out in I wrote this down, 2004. This was back before animes got wide releases. So you had to go to certain places, and it was playing in Minneapolis, and we drove to Minneapolis and we went to the movie, and it was fantastic. It blew us away, and I'm super excited, and I'm in the washroom. I'm like, that's so great. It's so fantastic. And this girl said, yeah, but the book was better. And I'm like, really? And then I got the book, and yeah, it was better.
Oh, so you saw the movie first and then read the book.
I had never heard. Maybe I'd heard a little bit about this writer, but not really, I don't think.
Interesting. I didn't know there was a book either, but I'm not it's not that I don't like Miyazaki, but I haven't seen all his films.
Mm-hmm. I've got a little bit of background here. And one thing this book did was it was called the Phoenix Award in 2004. And that is the best children's book written in the past 20 years that has not won any major awards.
Wow.
There's an award for that. Basically,
wow.
Something that gets overlooked when it comes out, and then later on everyone realizes it's fantastic, and this is the award that it gets.
It's like the belated birthday gift.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what did you think of the book? Because you haven't read anything of this author before.
It's interesting. It's a style of storytelling that I've actually seen in other writers, and I tend to not like, believe it or not. I'm not saying I don't like the book, but it's this style of storytelling. It doesn't always follow a story arc. It's not always predictable where things are going to go. The characters don't always work in ways that you would expect. But I think all of it is defying convention.
Right.
And that's the point.
I think so. So I partly picked this one out because I think it doesn't follow the hero's journey. But when I was looking through the book, it actually does contain some of the archetypes. I found that to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, now that we've had a conversation with Alana Gomel about the heroine's journey, the Stanford professor,
which was our episode last week, our workshop.
Yeah. She teaches what? Mythology and
science fiction and fantasy mostly. I think.
So that's what she teaches at Stanford. Stanford, right?
Yeah, she's got a position in Tel Aviv and all that. I'm not sure. She's got the credentials.
Yeah, she's got the goods. She's got the brains.
We were talking to her last week
about the heroine's journey. And it's interesting because I feel like Sophie, the protagonist, is following kind of a heroine's journey where her identity isn't full. There's something missing where she has to kind of fulfill her own destiny in completing her identity, which is great for a young adult book. So I get that. She's also getting into another world, but it also kind of feels like an underworld in a way, and it's psychological because she's been changed. She's been transformed into an old woman. She's a young woman transformed into an old woman. So she's kind of skipping steps here with the maiden mother crone stuff. But Howl the wizard, he is on a hero's journey, and his quest has to do with women and capturing them, right? And he goes from woman to woman as if they are different trials until he finds what I think is the ultimate woman.
In a very wholesome way, just so you know. That makes it sound really bad, but he's not lecherous or anything.
Well, wait. He makes them fall in love with him. He falls in love with them. And the moment that they fall in love with him back and he woos them successfully, he ditches them. How is that wholesome?
Well, I mean...
But it is typical fairy tale, and this is not a typical fairy tale, but this story is definitely a fairy tale.
Before we start, I want to go a little bit into the writer's background. So Dinah Wynne Jones, when she was an undergraduate, she had both Professor Tolkien and Professor C.S. Lewis.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Huh.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So that's who she had in college. One of her sisters is a literary critic. The other one is an actress and a children's book writer.
Whoa.
And she is married, or was married to a professor of medieval literature.
Oh my God.
So this is a woman that is steeped in critical theory and fantasy and medieval, basically sometimes you have a lot of times you hear a story about this one person that's, just from Idaho and they write this fantasy novel and that's great. But this is a woman that was so connected and so immersed in all these aspects of fantasy literature. And I mean, I think it's part of the reason why she's so good at what she does, even though, like you said, it's all mixed. It's not a traditional fairy tale or traditional structure.
Yeah, it's almost like she's a foretold destiny, right? She's been set up to write these things. Wow, that's fascinating. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
Dang. What classes did they teach?
I'm sure Tolkien taught some language stuff. And C.S. Lewis probably taught some philosophy or something. But anyway, I mean, it's a small college too. I bet she got to know them personally a bit too. So
nice.
Anyway, so she has an amazing lineage. And I just wanted to, before we started, just to give you the opening to this book, because I think it really I love this one. In the land of Ingary, where there are such things as 7-league boots and cloaks of invisibility, it is quite a misfortune to be born the eldest of 3. Everyone knows you are the one who will fail first and worst, if the 3 of you are set out to seek your fortunes. Sophie Hatter was the eldest of 3 sisters. She was not even the child of a poor woodcutter, which would have given her some chance of success. I love that the opening of this book is all about how Sophie can't possibly be the heroine of the story.
Right. She doesn't come from the right sad background to overcome. She's the oldest, so the youngest is usually the one that
who succeeds. And they talk about how Martha's very smart and her younger sister Letty is, very beautiful, and she has a stepmother, but her stepmother's actually quite nice.
But she's not, though. We find out later.
Spoiler. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to say about the book. And now we are going to go to the first chapter that we're covering today, which is, so we're covering 3 archetypes. We started with the hero and the mentor, which are these incredibly identifiable archetypes. People know them. It's easy to identify them and whatnot. And the next 3 are a little bit more weird.
And I don't know if they even deserve having their own archetype, but we'll get into that.
The first one is the Threshold Guardian. They also have very weird names.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. When I think of a Threshold Guardian, they're just like guarding the gate. Gatekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And as gatekeepers, they are making the hero prove their worth to go through the gate. So they offer some kind of challenge. It could be physical, it could be mental, and the hero has to beat them in some kind of challenge, and that proves their worthiness to move on.
Yes. when we were looking at The Hobbit, the Threshold Guardians were the first set of trolls he runs into, I believe, or orcs or whatever they were.
Yeah.
And he's told to burgle something from them, and it doesn't go very well. But it's the point where you truly become part of the world, of the new world that you're going into. Because up until that point, Bilbo could always just turn back.
Yeah.
But at that point, when he actually becomes engaged in the story, he becomes a part of the story. And that point, you're in it.
I wrote down henchmen. Like they can be a villain's henchman coming out trying to stop the hero.
Right. They said often this is not the big bad, but kind of the minor bad or somebody that's linked to it.
You're like leveling up. You're like the mushroom in Super Mario Brothers, that you have to step on, or Kumba. I don't remember what they're called, but they're creatures that help you level up and, get you interested in the story and help the character, the protagonist or the hero grow.
Right. Unfortunately, the hero story is all about everyone grows. Everything here involves growing and all that. I think a way of making this something unique is to say this is the first conflict that makes you part of the story, which is a very masculine way of looking at it, to say, well, it's not really an adventure until you get into a fight.
Well stated. Well said. What Kim said. I don't know. I can't have no follow-up. That was perfect.
And I see this in movies and things like where, your character does something. They steal from the wrong guy. They get into the wrong fight with somebody. They cross somebody. And then suddenly they are immersed in a much bigger crime world or dangerous, spy thriller, whatever. It's like often it's a physical confrontation that then builds and ties them in to the whole further story.
Yeah. In the show notes for the last episode, not with the interview, but the full episode on The Mentor, I included a graphic novel, The Dark Knight Returns, and it's the trilogy. And it's interesting because thinking of that book, because I was just reviewing it for those show notes, there are lots of Threshold Guardians in that trilogy. Not even main enemies. It's gangs. There's gang members, making Gotham really dangerous and stuff. And Batman goes out to defeat some of them. They're like minor bads.
Now, would you say that every time he encounters a minor bad, it's a Threshold Guardian, or is only the first one the Threshold Guardian? After that, they're just basic enemies?
Wait, what?
So you said there are multiple Threshold Guardians. Do you mean there's a single gang with a bunch of people he fights, or do you mean he's fighting different gangs or different people all the way through?
It's different people, but like a Threshold Guardian kicks off his adventure. He comes out of retirement, and the first thing he does is beats up some gang members, which are really low level compared to his past self. But now he's old, and it's been a while. It's just not so great anymore.
But would you say that first fight is the Threshold Guardian, and after that, I wouldn't say the rest of the fights are Threshold Guardians, would you?
I'd have to review the book, but I'm pretty sure there's henchmen. There's other henchmen that are involved that he has to fight that are sent by like the Joker.
Right, but I think it's the first one that really is the Threshold Guardian, because you can't be constantly going through thresholds all the way through.
Really? So you think this is specifically just to enter the new world? Like they're just there as part of a step?
It's not so much a part of the step. It's a step that you can't come back from.
Interesting.
Because after Batman fights that first set of thugs, he doesn't say, okay, actually, I think I'm going to be done, and I'm just going to go back to the manor, and we'll just put away the cloak and pretend it never happened. Because he really can't at that point. He could have done that when he was considering to fight the gang.
Okay. It's interesting. I thought they were throughout the story, but I guess not. I guess they're just like the one. Well, first let's talk about the psychological function, maybe.
I found that psychological functions go further and further into self-help as we go along with this.
It's so woo-woo. It's crazy. He makes no sense in the psychological function.
It's like, wait, are you talking about the character in the story? Or are you talking about you or me as the writer? Because, I don't know what you're talking about.
Is he trying to engage us in some kind of meditation?
Yeah, you're going to draw upon your own experience doing this, so therefore you're going to bring it to I don't know. This was the neuroses.
It's a neuroses.
Yeah.
The deeper psychological level The threshold guardians stand for our internal demons, the neuroses, emotional scars, vices, dependencies, and self-limitations that hold back our growth and progress.
So if this is the threshold guardian, then what's the big bad going to be?
No idea.
So like that's pretty major stuff in the end.
Right. I mean, isn't this like the internal conflict for the character that as they grow, they
Yeah, it seems to be a lot to be throwing at the threshold guardian that's like at the beginning of the book.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bizarre. And, you know, it's funny because in the mentor, when we talked about the mentor, you know, in the psychological function of the mentor, he was a god. It's the god within us. It's like, what are you saying? This is ridiculous. Sorry.
Oh, you think you have a god within you. Great.
I know, right?
The dramatic function makes more sense. They're testing the heroes.
Yeah.
If it's simply testing the heroes going to get tested all the way through. And that's what you said when you thought there were multiple fights and that each of them were equivalent to a threshold guardian because you've got multiple gangs and stuff. But
right.
And then he gets really weak on the examples because he decides the example he's going to come up with is when the Tin Man, Scarecrow, and Lion break into the witch's castle by disguising themselves 3/4 the way through the story of Oz, and they're not even the main characters, and they're not interacting with Dorothy at that. Anyway, so
then that can't be part of the journey into the other world.
I have no
because
idea.
It was so far. Well, okay, so
and they were part of the other world.
That's true. That's true. His examples suck. His examples are awful. They make no sense, especially in this archetype. He does not know what he is talking about. I'm just saying. Okay, but real quick, I keep having flashbacks of Monty Python's The Holy Grail, like constantly while I'm reading this. And near the end of the movie, I think the quintessential threshold guardian is the guy at the bridge, the old man, and he goes, "What is your quest?
What is your quest?
What is your favorite color? Blue, a beer, and oh!" You know, it's like I see it on loop in my head, and in a good way, because I love this movie. But there's various ones, right? You know, you've got brave, brave Sir Robin, and he fails the test. Like, he's not brave. Brave, brave Sir Robin ran away. You know, I'm starting to lean back towards the threshold guardians being throughout the story. They're like little mini quests, right?
I think we're agreeing to disagree here.
Okay, cool.
All right. You know, and it's okay for us to disagree. One of the great things about being with other writers is you can talk about this stuff and you have a great conversation, which brings me to bring up the fact that we have process groups.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We could dish it out at the process group.
We meet every Wednesday on Zoom. You can find a link on the website at 5 p.m. California time, Pacific Standard Time. And we alternate between a process group where the writers just get together, have some really good conversations. Sometimes we go a little bit into what we're writing, but mostly we're keeping general terms so the advice they can be given to everybody. And everyone joins in. And then on the other Wednesdays, we have what's called a writing sprint, where we just sit down and write for 2 hours. And Renee starts us off with a little tidbit of some bit of advice she's got from one of her books. And then we go to town. And I find that it's kind of nice because often on Wednesdays, I haven't got as much work done as I want to. And this is kind of the kick in the pants to force me to do it. Anyway, so check out our website and check that out.
Well, speaking of the process group from last night, we were talking about different kinds of plot formulas.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, and we were talking about, like, you know, there's this one, there's the hero's journey, but then there's somebody also mentioned the story arc, right? The Janet Burroway kind of made
there are
popular.
So many other structure books that we can cover after this.
Yeah, if we wanted to.
If we wanted to.
Yeah. So just letting you know, this is, if you're writing a fantasy, this is really helpful, and your readers are definitely gonna recognize it. But there are lots of different types that you could use.
And this book is on its 25th anniversary. And honestly, I think people's favorite book for writing has moved on. And so I keep hearing Save the Cat whenever someone says what they want to do. And Save Cat seems to beat this one out.
Maybe we'll cover that one next time. But right now, we're doing this one. Yeah. Okay. So we've got the dramatic function of testing. So the hero's role in relationship to this threshold guardian. He says, when heroes confront one of these figures, they must solve a puzzle or pass a test, like the Sphinx who presents Oedipus with a riddle before he can continue his journey. The threshold guardian challenge and test the hero on the path. Sometimes they can become allies in the end. Like, you fight them and then they're like, hey, you're kind of a cool guy. Let's hang out.
Yeah, it's like continuously, and this person's bad this way, but they can become friends.
Right. And sometimes that can go too far.
When we're talking structure of book, so often you have someone that's an enemy that becomes a friend. And it's a really good plot idea, and it's a really good structure element to have. And honestly, if you do it well, nobody minds, because everyone likes the cool badass that's then your cool friend.
Yeah.
But let's go to who we think the Threshold Guardian is in Howl's Moving Castle.
Okay.
I think we should just stick with Sophie as the main character, because I know that Howl has his own arc, but unless there's something you really want to bring in about Howl's Threshold Guardian. But
No. I mean, I just want to mention for those of you who have not read the book, because I had never read the book, and I don't even remember the film very well, because I saw it a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Quick synopsis of this book. This girl, she's the oldest, the father dies, the stepmother's doing some shifty stuff and kind of working her to the bone, and she's a seamstress. Then a witch comes in. She pisses the witch off, unfortunately, and the witch turns her old. So she takes maybe someone who's 18 years old and makes them like 80. So she looks in the mirror, she's old, and she's, dealing with old lady stuff. And she goes in search of Howl's Moving Castle, and Howl is a person. He's a wizard. I don't think she's necessarily going after him in order to lift her curse, is she? I'm actually not sure what her motivation was for chasing down his castle that moves around all the time.
So as we were saying, part of the cool thing about this book is it's not a linear, like, that you do this, someone gets a quest, someone mentor. In fact, I think one thing that's missing from this book really is any kind of mentors.
Right.
Sophie just kind of does it herself. And she's an old lady. No one's going to give advice to an old lady.
Right. Well, she's on her own. And anyway, so she wants to lift her curse. That is her motivation.
Mm-hmm. And a whole bunch of other stuff happens. We'll probably get to some of that in discussion.
So the protagonist is Sophie.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
So your question was?
Who is the Threshold Guardian? We have two different theories. One theory is that somebody that tests Sophie, probably the first person that tests Sophie, that she overcomes that and as a step in her journey. The other one is before this person, Sophie's in the regular world. After this encounter, she's in the magical world, even though in Ingri, it's all magical anyway. But before that point, she is the oldest daughter who's never going to actually have an adventure. And after that encounter, suddenly she is the hero, even if she doesn't recognize it.
Oh, from the witch?
Yep, so that's pretty much it. I think the Witch of the Waste who meets her and turns her old is the Threshold Guardian.
But she doesn't outwit her. She actually doesn't win.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So it doesn't really fit as a test. But then again, I don't know if there's really any good instances where Sophie does best somebody. She just makes a lot of mistakes.
It's interesting because, that Witch of the Waste that makes her old isn't really a Threshold Guardian. She is a big bad. I guess she is the Threshold Guardian, and it kickstarts Sophie into her quest. But she's not easy to overcome, and Threshold Guardians are more like henchmen.
I think that's a standard way. Basically, the Threshold Guardian is meant to be this easy thing you can overcome. Or in the case of the Hobbit, some trolls that he meets, and then we never see them again. I mean, that's one way to do it. But sometimes, you don't want to have a whole bunch of extra bad guys in the story, especially for something like this, which is much more... which isn't a whole bunch of like, I go fight this person, I go fight this person, I go fight this person.
Right. It's not like a video game. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the fact that she doesn't win and that she's actually messed up and the witch gets away without any damage at all is an interesting take. I don't know if you necessarily have to beat the Threshold Guardian to justify being in the magical world. This is an example where you don't.
Right. Well, so here he does say, Threshold Guardians are not to be defeated, but incorporated, literally taken into the body. Heroes learn the Guardians' tricks, absorb them, and go on. Ultimately, fully evolved heroes feel compassion for their apparent enemies and transcend rather than destroy them.
One way in which the Witch of the Waste does change Sophie or causes her to realize something, even though she doesn't actually realize, is that the witch is mad at her because Sophie's doing magic. She is talking to these hats and she's imbibing them with powers, and people are wearing these hats and things are happening to them because they're wearing the hats. And the Witch of the Waste doesn't like the fact that Sophie's gone in on her territory. So even though Sophie doesn't win the battle, the fact is she's being acknowledged by the witch as a fellow witch.
Interesting. I didn't catch that. But it's been all over the place. And why I didn't catch it, I don't know.
Because it's an incredibly soft magic.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's just because she's grumbling at something.
Right. Yeah. She's making, so for background, Sophie is making these hats. That's the business that the stepmother takes over. And, she's pretty much using Sophie as slave labor, right? And Sophie doesn't realize it, but she is using magic. I didn't realize till now. She is using magic to make these incredibly awesome hats and making a very popular hat shop.
Yeah.
And then the witch comes in like, I need a good hat. And I guess she sees her and is like, oh, she's using magic to make these hats?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so this is adding a new level to the story that I had not thought of. I think it was mentioned later, but I didn't catch it.
It's incredibly soft magic. I really like it that way, but yeah. When I was going through these examples, I was also kind of thinking about my own book that's coming out. I heard from them that it is possibly going to be out by mid-September. The cover is just about done. The line notes are done. I'm really happy. Anyway,
that's amazing.
So I was thinking about my book. Did I have a Threshold Guardian? And in my book, the first third of it, the heroes, the boy band, is, they're doing stuff, but they're really not very serious. And the Threshold Guardian is an actual fight. It's the fight against the cockatrices.
Right.
And that's the point where after that fight, they're heroes. They're integrated into the world in a way that they weren't beforehand. And that's a more classic example. But, it's like you get in a fight and you're part of the story.
There you go. So it does follow a little bit.
It's interesting that these archetypes actually are identifiable, but here's my thoughts, which are they're very much more analysis. Like after the fact, let's go in and identify what these things are. I'm not sure if when you're writing your book, you really are thinking about, at this point in the story, I should have a Threshold Guardian.
Yeah, I would worry about doing it that way unless, you're one of those like outliners, just because it's going to feel very wooden. The reader's going to read it going, this feels like I'm being led through the story.
Yeah.
So I'm done with Threshold Guardian. There isn't much there.
These chapters
serve
are
one
short.
function. Yeah, and they're so general and there's no examples.
They're very scattered too.
Oh, okay.
The Herald.
The Herald, or in other words, the messenger, right?
Which doesn't feel like it should necessarily be its own archetype. Like the chorus isn't the archetype. I mean, it's not really...
I don't know. I don't know what to say at this point. Oh, actually, I do. I have lots of things to say. So, like the heralds of medieval chivalry, herald characters issue challenges and announce the coming of significant change.
Yes, and then there was another line which was... A new person, condition, or information shifts the hero's balance, and nothing will ever be the same. So, like, this could be a person. This could be a condition. This could be a piece of paper they pick up on the road. That's the Herald.
Yeah. Why it gets its own, I don't know. It says, the Herald gets the story rolling. Okay. There's lots of things that get the story rolling. So you just named something and then that's it?
Yeah, and also, like, we just talked about the... Threshold Guardian being the point at which you enter the story. And we talked about the mentor coming and telling you about the story. I read a lot of these, and my first inclination is that this is complete bullshit. But I do actually have some good thoughts on this. Let's first by saying that the psychological function is a call for change. And actually, this one wasn't quite as wonky because we were talking with Alana about how there's a moment where the... heroine has to go and do something. There's something changes fundamentally within them, more of an internal state. Where the Threshold Guardian's external, this is some bit of information that changes their perspective.
Yeah.
And the dramatic function is motivation. I think that when we're writing our stories, we have the external circumstances and we have the internal circumstances. And to really get somebody on their journey, to get them into the adventure, you have to have changes in both because the person doesn't start off as a hero. The person starts off ordinary. So if they were really that extraordinary and that focused, they might already have gotten themselves into an adventure.
Right.
So one way of looking at the Herald is this is the structural element. It might be a person. It might just be, a realization that they are part of the story internally as opposed to externally.
Yeah, it's like a plot point that happens within a character.
it's a plot point that happens to the hero, and it can be from a person or it can be from something else.
Right. It serves a purpose. It does its thing. It's a little confusing because he says, most frequently employed in Act 1 to help bring the hero into the adventure. And I'm like, wait a minute. Isn't that what the mentor was for?
That's definitely what Gandalf was doing.
Right. So it's like, okay, so the mentor helps the character get into the quest, but then this is supposed to do that. So I guess maybe this is just like, how do you reveal the quest? Yes, Gandalf was, all encompassing. He was both the herald and the mentor. But in other stories, maybe they're separate.
Well, maybe it was when the dwarves started singing heroic songs. Maybe that was the herald.
Maybe. Yeah,
I put it into his head that he wanted to do this.
To be a hero. I'm trying to think of another book that includes this. I keep thinking of Game of Thrones, and I think of the king who comes to Ned's realm in the north. And he's a herald. He's pretty much coming, hey, I need a hand of the king. That is a very big change for Ned.
Yeah.
And that's the call to his adventure. He has to go to the north and be the hand of the king.
Yeah. But for him, it's all obligation.
But it doesn't matter.
You're right. It's a call to change. And, whether or not you actually feel it.
He does it anyway.
He does.
He does it anyway.
Should have listened to his wife.
Yeah. Dude, if people would have listened to her, and now she's a zombie. Sorry, spoiler, if you read the books. I'm trying to think of another story.
Well, how about in Howl's Moving Castle? Who's the herald?
Oh, that's a good question. The castle itself. No, I don't remember. Is there a herald? I mean, there's Howl is in town, right?
Mm-hmm. Who is it she meets when she comes to the castle? She's just kind of planning on hanging out there. She's not planning on staying. And then she meets somebody.
Calcifer?
Yeah.
Oh. Calcifer is fire, by the way.
Yes, he's a fire demon. He runs the castle. He's also slave labor.
He is. So if he's the herald, what is the message? The message is you can lift this curse?
The message is, I've got a deal for you. I'll lift your curse if you lift my curse. And that's what locks Sophie into the whole story. That's why she hangs around. That's why she sticks her nose into things. That's why she discovers stuff and becomes attached to these people, is because she has a reason for being there, and Calcifer gives her the reason.
So it seems like the main function of a herald is, like you said, to lock the protagonist into the story.
Yes. And not lock as like trap. I mean, you could say that, but that's almost what the threshold guardian is. But to present something that changes their mindset so they stay or they continue on with the story.
Right. It's the internal motivation, not the external. It's almost like the threshold guardian provides the external motivation. She's been turned old. She has to lift the curse. But the internal motivation that guides all of her movements is this deal with Calcifer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interessant.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like we're getting this, man. All right. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
To some side order of misogyny?
The next chapter is Shapeshifter, and I would like to take this moment to let Renee give us a rant, because I know she's got one there.
Right. Do you want to speak before I do? Because I'm going to get kind of heated here.
No, I think you should just go for it.
Just open the floodgates, yo. The Shapeshifter. There's so much malarkey.
I see a lot of notes
in this archetype. I swear to God, I don't know why it's in here. Okay, let's just start. What the heck is the Shapeshifter?
Is it really an archetype when you really don't even know what it is?
I don't even know. Heroes frequently encounter figures whose primary characteristic is that they appear to change constantly from the hero's point of view. Often the hero's love interest or romantic partner will manifest the qualities of the Shapeshifter, like a murderous harpy.
I actually marked some spots here. I didn't mark that many, but These are the ones that are going to set right off, and the murderous harpy was one of them.
So the psychological function, oh my God, is to express the energy of the animus and anima, terms from psychology of Carl Jung, dear Lord. The animus is Jung's names for the male element in the female unconscious, the bundle of positive and negative images of masculinity in a woman's dreams and fantasies. The anima is the corresponding female element in the male conscious. So he talks about what it's like for a female to have the male part of her in her body, right? But when he says the anima is the corresponding female element in the male consciousness, period.
I see.
There's no more about that. What does it do to the male? We don't know. In this theory, people have a complete set of both male and female qualities, which are necessary for survival and internal balance.
I also like to do a shout out back to our previous episode with Alana, where she was commenting how in Freudian psychology, the woman is an incomplete man.
Right.
So, that maybe she's looking for her male part. That's the heroine's journey.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's just, so it's annoying that we keep breaking down our social structures based on gender. It drives me freaking crazy because when we do that, we kind of say that women are different, but in the worst ways, and like intelligence and all these other things. And in this chapter, he pretty much says that women mostly are these shapeshifters. They are people who are untrustworthy. Being a woman makes you fickle. You can't pin them down. They essentially cause conflict for the hero.
There's a lot of calling back to the 80s movies with the psycho girlfriends.
Yeah, he even mentions Fatal Attraction.
And some of the other ones, yeah.
I just want to read this one sentence. Oh my God. Women change dramatically during their monthly cycle, shifting with the phases of the fucking moon.
I have that one marked too.
If he's married, I don't know. Women complain that men are vague, vacillating, and unable to commit. Really? They do? I didn't have that problem. Men complain that women are moody, flighty, fickle, and unpredictable. Holy crap.
Oh, and then the other bit after that?
During pregnancy, they drastically shift shape and mood. So you shapeshift what into a big person?
This is the one instance where actually a woman might have a bit of male in her body.
Right. At some time, most of us have been perceived by others as two-faced shapeshifters. What is the function of this chapter? I don't actually know. I'm having a really hard time figuring out not what a shapeshifter does in a story, but what the fuck it has to do with women and men and their roles. Like, I don't get it.
I have a theory. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at basically the hero's journey is something that is taken from myth stories, okay? And in the myth story, often the hero will encounter a shapeshifter. That will be an archetype that will fool them or will trick them or is a god that's disguised. And usually a hero's journey maybe has one or two of these, okay? And it's a surprise and it's delight. Think about modern stories, like TV series. Everybody's a shapeshifter. Nobody is quite who they expect. That's the whole beauty of our television, our entertainment, is that you didn't know this person was going to do this. You didn't know this person actually had this agenda. They didn't know this was connection. Like everybody has a shape-shifting quality in a lot of modern entertainment, and we like it.
You mean hidden agendas?
Well, hidden agendas, but also just, we didn't know that these two people were sleeping together. Or we didn't know that this person was that person's mother.
Give me an example.
Okay, well, from like Howl's Moving Castle, the fact is that there are only two characters that are exactly what they appear to be. There's Michael and there's Mrs. Fairfax. Mm-hmm. And everybody else in Howl's Moving Castle, they're actually under magical transformations or they are under curses that change them in some way. Everybody is somebody different than who they are. Or let's take something like...
So wait, I'm going to reveal spoilers here, but we all know that's going to happen when we read these novels. Howl, one of the coolest plot twists, maybe that's the thing I call it, is like a plot twist. Uh-huh. One of the coolest things about the book that made me perk up and really kind of fall in love with this book a little bit was we learn that Howl is from Earth. He's from the modern world.
Yeah, he's got a rugby team back home that he visits with sometimes.
Yeah, his sister is like, you're a lazy piece of shit, right? Like it's, oh my God, he has a car. Like it's, and immediately I was like, oh my God, it's like breaking the fourth wall in a way. And then I was like, oh my God, this is a really cool, weird world here. You can enter and leave one world for the other.
Yeah.
And you become very different people. Like at home, he's the annoying brother who won't get a goddamn job, who leeches off his sister when he decides to show up, right?
And the kids love him better.
And well, yeah, everybody loves the older lazy brother. He's so cool. But then he goes to Sophie's world and he is this wizard who's been trained and he's, this Casanova. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me again of Wilde's
The importance of being earnest?
The importance of being earnest.
Like, are people who who they appear to be, or do they shift into something different as the play goes on?
They do tend to shift into something different as the play goes on.
I think one of the issues you have here is that this is such a critical aspect of storytelling, the reveal, or having people have different facets of themselves. And in myths, they were much shorter. You had a couple people that had different facets. But overall, everybody else kind of were straightforward. And I think that one issue he's running into is the shapeshifter in Campbell's interpretation might make a lot of sense as a single individual. But when you pull them into more modern stories, you get lost. And his insistence on looking at romances and romantic thrillers shows that he's trying to adapt the hero's journey for a romance. And he's doing this by calling shapeshifters. But I don't know if the hero's journey works for a romance.
Well, because most romances protagonists are women.
Yeah, or they both are main characters. Something like Pride and Prejudice, they both have aspects, but there's nobody going into other worlds, and there's no metaphorical hero's journey. It's just about a relationship and kind of how they go back and forth and how, they adapt.
So that's your theory as to why he's being a sexist jerk here and being
bizarre.
No. He is so obsessed, dear listener, he is so obsessed with gender and the roles of gender and how women are shifty and all this weird stuff in this chapter. And that is his explanation for what a shapeshifter is. I am so confused. I do not understand what he's even talking about. And it makes me think he's saying the quiet part out loud. Okay? He has these really weird ideas about women and they came out in the Shapeshifter.
Also, this is a book from 25 years ago. He was in Hollywood. Have you looked at movies from your childhood that you want to play for your own kids? This was really funny. Oh my God, could I believe... Are they actually saying that about that female character? Oh my goodness, are they actually calling that joke? Oh, that is just disgusting. I mean, you look at these movies and it's like, were we all cavemen when they were filming these?
Cavemen. Or women.
Cavemen. Right, but
cave people.
This is one of those places where this did not age well. I think all this stuff was probably much more acceptable and people weren't questioning a lot of this stuff back then.
Oh, okay, so I did notice some things more in older films that we don't see that much anymore. He says, in many films, a woman's change of costume or hairstyle indicates that her identity is shifting and her loyalty is in doubt. Which kind of creeper much, right? Like, it almost sounds like, why are you wearing lipstick? Where are you going? You're looking good, right? Like, are you going to cheat on me? Like, it feels like that almost.
Which counter the fact is that in romance stories, in romantic comedies, where often the woman gets a different hairstyle or something when she is over and done with somebody and she's going on with her life and she's going to take the next step. It's kind of a very empowerment thing.
Right, definitely. But I also thought, you know what this is? I think it's the ugly pretty girl. We don't see them anymore because people, I think, complained. But there's a lot of these older films from the 90s and the 80s where the girl is quote unquote ugly because she has glasses on and she puts her hair in a ponytail. But then, she starts dating. Usually she's tricked into dating or the guy is tricked into dating her. It's a big con. He's a shapeshifter, I guess. And she ends up dating him and getting into another circle of popularity and all this other stuff. And then they have a big fight because she learns the truth, but he really loves her. It's such a tired, old story. And suddenly she appears changed, empowered, like you said. And her hair comes down. She wears some fucking makeup. She takes off her glasses. I guess she's wearing contacts now. And she's hot.
What's that movie? The one with John Travolta? The musical?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Grease.
Grease. Oh, my God.
The classic. At the very end, when she's claiming her man, she's got the hair up to here and the makeup.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, you nailed it. You know what it made me also think of? The Breakfast Club. There's the crazy girl, the weird girl. Mm-hmm. And, suddenly she looks beautiful in the end, right? And she's worthy now. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're so pretty. As like, that's the thing you're supposed to be. Anyway, so that made me think of that.
I do have something positive to say about this idea of the shapeshifter. And this actually kind of came from the psychological section of it while I was reading it. And I think I was not really reading too much what its actual words were, but my brain was thinking about other stuff. One cool thing about the shapeshifter as he's describing their relationships is that the fact that this person you're pursuing or that you're involved with is constantly changing is causing you to reevaluate and for you to change. Mm. And I don't actually think this is part of the hero's journey, but I do think this is a really interesting structure and narrative and interaction for characters in a story. You think this person's this way, they're that way, you change how they think that you're different. That kind of shifting and exploration of character is a very sophisticated aspect to a story.
Yeah.
And you can't get that if everyone's straightforward. You only get that kind of stuff if people have different sides that they're revealing and you're discovering.
Actually, that's a very interesting point. It's making me think that it creates an opportunity for the writer to help the character, like you said, reevaluate what's going on. And it could make them shift their motivation. It can help them make choices that seem off. Like, this character wouldn't make this choice, but a shapeshifter can make them make it in one way or another. And it does get, psychologically into, well, what is the line for this hero? Mm-hmm. And how do you get them to cross it?
Yeah. And you get all that if you treat this as a more sophisticated tool and you don't treat this as, oh, I have my shapeshifter that I'm inserting into my story so I can make these things happen.
I'm putting in this shifty woman
to
confuse the hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Here's the thing. I'm not angry at this archetype. The shapeshifter, sure, works. And it does have some useful stuff. But it's useful when you discuss it, Kim, and you explain it. It is not useful in the way that he described it.
With his examples.
With his awful, awful examples. And I feel like he lets us all down. The shapeshifter could be a really valuable character and tool in a plot for the hero. And he lets us all down.
When we were doing the Bickham book, Bickham had kind of like one idea and he kind of expanded it, but he was always kind of going back to that one idea. And at a certain point, it got really into the weeds as he was exploring the single, this idea or this small set of ideas. Vogler has this is my solution for everything. And what it results is in a book that is like tiny chapters, jumping into a bunch of ideas and like not really describing them and then moving on to the next. He wants to cover everything. And so he's jamming, and not jamming deeply, but like a sentence here or a sentence there into this book because he wants to cover everything. And here he wanted to cover the shapeshifter, but he really doesn't cover it. He just mentions it, makes it confusing, and moves on.
Yeah. He even has, oh my God, one of the headings in the shapeshifter is projection. I think he's the one projecting here. The thing that drives me crazy about this book is the examples. Yes, they're films. This was originally a book for screenwriters, but he hardly even puts any films in, even though those are the only examples he provides. There are no examples. There are no good examples. There's no breakdown of examples. How in the world is a writer, like a beginning writer, how are they supposed to use this book?
Yeah. I mean, like, some of these movies aren't even available on Netflix because they're so old.
Right. You could probably get them on Prime. But yeah, it's very frustrating. And they say it's the 25th anniversary edition. And he says he changed things. He did not change enough.
No.
He has not grown as protagonist.
Did you identify a shapeshifter in Howl's Moving Castle?
I thought it was Calcifer. Because you find out later that he's got ulterior motives and he's kind of tricking Sophie. He isn't completely upfront, but he is a demon. And by definition, you're not supposed to trust them.
Right, but a demon is a shapeshifter. I think the issue you run with is you are basically looking at this book and saying, well, what person isn't who they seem? That is everybody except for Michael and Mrs. Fairfax. Like I said, everybody is somebody different than who they seem. And you haven't gone all the way through the book, so you haven't necessarily addressed all that. But you can't use that identifier to identify who the shapeshifter in this story is. Mm-hmm. But there is, I think, by the psychological description in the hero's journey or the writer's journey and some of the stuff they talked about, in my opinion, Hal is the shapeshifter. Because Sophie tries to understand him. She tries to figure out what's going on. She investigates him, and he keeps shifting as she goes along. He's a bit different person here. She discovers that, no, he doesn't actually eat women's hearts. He just romances them. And the issue isn't so much that, he does horrible things, but their families and aunts get mad at him, and they want to avoid angry aunts because they're really bad when they show up and angry because Hal's broken some girl's heart.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, he comes from a different world. And then she discovers he's kind of a coward. I mean, all these different things. But, and you've seen the movie, so you know this, but the thing is, as she discovers all these different things, she really becomes very fond of him. Mm-hmm. She becomes very emotionally attached, and she falls in love with him.
Yes.
And you're going to find that actually many of the things that he's doing are things that he's doing to help her. So by the romantic definition of what the shapeshifter is, that is Hal, not so much because he's hiding stuff or, revealing different things, although that is part of it. It's because when he reveals different things, when Sophie finds out more about him, she changes as well. And they form a relationship because of these discoveries and aspects of his personality.
Okay. So is this book one of those books where we get to the third act or like near the end of the third act and it all starts to make sense? And then you go, oh, crap, that's what was going on. And then you just want to reread the book because now that the puzzle pieces are all in place?
Yes, except it all happens in the last 2 chapters.
Okay.
Until that point, none of it makes sense.
So we're just kind of suspended in a little bit of confusion.
Yeah, she likes to write that way.
Does that not drive you crazy?
I find it delightful. When I read books, I usually see what's happening a fair ways off, so I'm never really surprised. And here it's because so many things are happening, I can just kind of enjoy the book and know that at the end she's going to all tie it together. Right.
Oh, that's the thing. I just realized I've got some issues.
Do you have issues?
Yeah, just a few. I have some trust issues with authors. I just realized that now. Like, the reason I don't like this style of storytelling, Neil Gaiman does something very similar, but you had mentioned that he was directly inspired by Diana Wynne Jones. The reason it bothers me is because I probably have an inherent distrust of the author being in control. And if they're not showing me that they're in control, or at least they're not guiding me and, controlling the narrative in a way that I can recognize, I feel like I'm being tricked. I feel like I'm being led through this story and I'm wasting my time. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh my God, I don't always trust the author, and I don't trust her right now. And that's why I'm getting these weird feelings. I'm not saying the story is bad. It's just,
you've been screwed over before.
I've got once bitten, twice shy, right? I've got trust issues. What am I supposed to do? Anyway, does that make sense? Do you think that maybe is it?
I totally think that's it.
Wow.
That is you in a nutshell, Renee.
What, that I don't trust anybody, or just the
No, that you like to have certain assurances that things are going to go a certain way. And when someone doesn't give you those assurances, your danger signals go on.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second, you're trying to pull something over on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow. It's so fascinating how we apply our own like weird psychoses or not psychoses, issues. Neuroses, even when you're just being a reader of a story. Like, you bring it all with you, right? Schema's this amazing theory. We just saw it play out. Wow. Wowza. This has been an interesting episode.
I knew it was going to be a good one. I wasn't sure it was going to be this good.
Epiphany. I feel like I let you down on the rant, though. I got really angry and loud, but I wasn't quite as witty.
Oh.
In terms of calling him out for being a sexist POS.
Honestly, the first book that we did, The Art of Fiction.
Yeah. Gardner.
Like, the thing is that Gardner was a sexist piece of shit, but he was much more eloquent about it and much more witty, and there was a lot more fun things to hang it on. In fact, this writing is not nearly as evocative or as interesting.
Oh my God, now that you mention it, that's what's pissing me off a lot, is that this guy, he's projecting in the sense that he doesn't even realize how sexist he is. He just puts it in there like, well, doesn't everybody think this way? Well, of course. I mean, this is how I'm going to identify with my reader and give them an example everyone can relate to. As if all women just agree, well, yeah, we're shape-shifting bitches. We're shape-shifting
Femme fatales.
Femme fatales. So that's the thing, because Gardner, he admitted he was a sexist pig.
He reveled in it.
Fanny the freaking stripper. Right?
Best episode ever.
Oh my God.
There was so much to dig into there.
Oh.
And here, this is just much more sparse. There just isn't enough to really...
Right.
I mean, I don't feel like I want to read lines from this book. The thing about the Gardner's book was there was a lot of lines that were worth reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you just nailed something. In the show notes, there are less of his quotes. Like, I usually will make an image on Canva that has a quote, it's for social media and other things, and it engages the reader. There's not very many of those.
So, excellent episode.
Yeah.
We're going to cut it right here because we're getting close to the end. And we are going to do another workshop next week. And then we'll keep going with this book.
What are we doing in the workshop? Do you know?
I'm not quite sure. I'm still working out those details. But I think I've got another author that I think I'm going to call in, and we'll get that all set up.
Coolio.
Yeah, I think we'll keep with the Dino Wind job. So you should finish the book. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to look at the rest of the archetypes and just plow through. I think there's 3 or 4 more of them. We'll just get through archetypes 2 weeks from now.
So, dear listener, you have 2 more weeks to finish Howl's Moving Castle.
Yes.
Not the movie, but the book.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful week.
Have a great week. Bye.
Words to Write By is produced by Renee Nelson and Kim Smiga Adam. Our theme music is Roll Back the Carpet by Cool Cat Music. Have a great day.
Like when they're least expecting it, so they can't just like flip forward, because that's what I do in podcasts. I'm like, oh, it's the ad.